Welcome to Marvelous French, in-depth French lessons for students of all levels. Today's lesson is a continuation of our Closer Look series, where we look at authentic French materials for interesting vocabulary and grammar points. We're continuing with the first episode from the French series Hélène et les Garçons, which is a sitcom from the 90s that focuses on 6 college students, 3 boys and 3 girls. In previous lessons, we looked at the first few lines of the episode. A link to the previous lessons, and to the first episode of Hélène et les Garçons with French subtitles, has been included in the description box below. The beginning of the episode takes place in a cafeteria near school. The 3 male students, Christian, Etienne, and Nicolas, are discussing the importance of being prepared for exams. Christian actually thinks it's not a big deal since exams are far off, and... well, let's see what he has to say next. Et puis, d'ici la fin de l'année, on aura écrit un tube, which can literally be translated as, and anyway, between now and the end of the year, we will have written a hit. We can translate the sentence as, and we'll have written a hit by the end of the year anyway. So we have et, meaning and, puis, which means then or next, d'ici, from here, la fin de l'année, the end of the year, on, we, aura écrit, will have written, and un tube, a hit. So puis literally means then, or next, but here can be translated as, and anyway. D'ici la fin de l'année means between now and the end of the year, or before, by the end of the year. Let's take a closer look at the expression d'ici. D'ici is a combination of the preposition de, de, meaning from, and ici, meaning here, so literally from here. De becomes d apostrophe when followed by a vowel or a mute h, which gives us d'ici instead of de ici. We call this elision, contracting the final vowel of a short word when the following word starts with a vowel or a mute h. We saw this in our previous lesson, part 2 of the series, with the word the, le and la in the singular, which becomes L apostrophe when followed by a vowel or a mute h. So again, d'ici literally means from here. Here are some examples. Je peux voir la Tour Eiffel d'ici. I can see the Eiffel Tower from here. We have a second example. C'est loin d'ici. Can you translate that sentence yourself? If you watched our previous lesson in the series, you might remember we saw c'est and loin in our previous bit of dialogue. That's right, c'est loin d'ici. It's far from here. D'ici, followed by a time expression, means between now and, or by or before that time. So, d'ici la fin de l'année means by the end of the year, or before the end of the year. Here are some sentences found on the internet that use d'ici in this way. Pokémon RPG sur Switch d'ici fin 2019? Pokémon RPG on the Nintendo Switch by the end of 2019? This is the title of a YouTube video referring to a video game. We have another sentence, this time from an online news source. D'ici fin avril, le gouvernement entend trouver une solution. The government intends to find a solution by the end of April. So d'ici can be used for location, meaning from here, or for time, meaning between now and sometime in the future. Looking back at our sentence, we see la fin and l'année, both of which use a form of the word the. Fin, which means end, is feminine, so the end is la fin. Année is also feminine here, but because it starts with a vowel, la gets contracted to L apostrophe. So the year is l'année. We also have some nasal sounds here. Fin, F-I-N, has the nasal combination I-N, pronounced in. Fin. This is the same sound we heard in the word for exam in the previous lesson, examen. The word on, O-N, is also nasal. On. U-N, is also nasal. As mentioned in our previous lesson, nasal sounds are triggered by a vowel or several vowels followed by N or M. So we have fin, F-I-N, on, O-N, and un, U-N. But let's go back to the word année, which means year. Année is feminine, but in French there's also a masculine form of the word as well, an, A-N. They both mean year, so what's the difference? Let's take a look at when you use the feminine versus the masculine form of year and other time words. So again, the word year has a masculine and feminine form in French. An, masculine, and année, feminine. A few other time-related words also have both a masculine and feminine form: morning, day, and evening. Let's look at when we use the masculine forms, which are an, year, matin, morning, jour, day, and soir, evening. We use the masculine forms of these words when we specify a number. For example, 3 years is 3 ans. 1 day is un jour. If I want to say I did something for 3 days, I would say 3 jours and not 3 journées. The masculine forms are also used as part of the expression tous les, which means every, as in every day, every morning, etc. Tous les literally means all the and is masculine plural. It therefore calls for the masculine plural form of whatever follows. So every year is tous les ans, A-N-S. Every day is tous les jours, J-O-U-R-S. Any guess on how we would say every morning? That's right, tous les matins, M-A-T-I-N-S. The masculine form of these words is also used with ce, C-E, which is a masculine singular adjective that means this or that. So this or that morning is ce matin. Ce jour means this or that day. Now, as always, there is an exception. When you want to specifically say this year, we use the feminine form of year, année. So this year is cette année. Cette is the feminine singular form of the adjective ce. Now, how about the feminine forms of these words? What do they look like, and when are they used? Let's find out. The feminine forms of these words are année, year, matinée, morning, journée, day, and soirée, evening. These forms are used with most adjectives. Adjectives are words that describe nouns such as big, red, etc. Here are some examples. En quelle année? What year? Literally, in which year? Where quelle means which and is an adjective modifying the word year. Une belle journée, a beautiful day. Belle means beautiful, feminine. The masculine form of the adjective is beau, B-E-A-U. And then we have ma soirée, my evening. Ma is the feminine form of the word my, which is a possessive adjective modifying the word evening. So in general, we use the feminine forms with adjectives. But again, there are exceptions. We mentioned previously that the adjective meaning this or that is used with the masculine forms of morning, day, and evening. So again, this that morning is ce matin, masculine. This that day is ce jour, and this that evening is ce soir. Cette année, meaning this year, however, remains feminine. The feminine forms are also used in the expression toute la, meaning the entire, the whole. For example, toute l'année means all year, the whole year. Toute la soirée means all evening, the entire evening. So how would we say all day? Right, toute la journée. Don't worry if you got it wrong. Just nod your head and play along. While you're nodding your head, compare these two expressions. Tous les ans, masculine plural, which means every year, each year, as in we go to France every year. On va en France tous les ans. And toute l'année, a feminine singular, all year, the entire year, the whole year, as in we spent the entire year in Los Angeles. On a passé toute l'année à Los Angeles. So that takes us through half of the sentence. Let's see what more we have. Next we have on aura écrit. We will have written. On means we here. We discussed this in parts 1 and 2 of our closer look lesson on Hélène et les Garçons. On can be used instead of nous to mean we. It can also mean one, the general you or they, as in they love movies in France. On adore le cinéma en France. Or you, everyone, should always be kind to others. On devrait toujours être gentil envers les autres. Again, here, based on the context, on just means we. Next we have aura écrit, will have written. Let's take a look at that. Aura écrit, will have written, is conjugated in a tense known as the future anterior, or the future perfect, le futur antérieur in French. This tense is used for a future action that will be completed by or before another action or time in the future. For example, Christian's next bit of dialogue includes On sera devenus des stars internationales. We will have become international stars, still referring to before the end of the year. You have two pieces in the future, a future time before the end of the year, and a future event, becoming stars. Because the future event of becoming a star will occur before the future time, the end of the year, we use the future anterior. Before the end of the year, we will have become stars. In English, we sometimes just use the plain future to express this. We'll be stars before the year is up. But French is more precise with its tenses. When our future event is set to happen before another future event or time, the future anterior is triggered. This also applies to sentences with expressions such as quand and lorsque, which both mean when. Lorsque is more formal. Après que, after, and dès que and aussitôt que, which both mean as soon as. These expressions trigger a future tense when used with an event that is yet to happen. If these expressions are used with the future event that happens before another future event or time, we'll use the future anterior. So, je t'appellerai quand il sera arrivé. I'll call you when he arrives. Literally, I'll call you when he will have arrived. His arrival is a future event that will happen, will have already happened, before the call, so we put it in the future anterior. So here we have a little diagram to illustrate the timeline. If now is 9 a.m. and he is arriving at 11 a.m. in the future, by the time I call you at around 11:15 a.m., after all, we've got to give him time to get situated, get him some water, you know. By the time I call you, he will have already arrived. So we have two future events, one occurring before the other. The future event that will occur before the second one, him arriving, is the piece we've put in the future anterior. Il sera arrivé. He will have arrived. Another usage of the future anterior in French is in historical accounts of past events. In English, we often use did, would do, or would go on to do in such cases. For example, Chopin aura composé 4 ballades. Aura composé literally translates to will have composed, but here means Chopin composed or would go on to compose 4 ballades. Let's take a brief look at how verbs are conjugated in the future anterior. The future anterior is a compound tense, which means that it involves an auxiliary verb, also called a helper verb, either avoir, to have, or être, to be, followed by the past participle of the main verb. The helper verb is conjugated in the future to form the future anterior. So here we have the verb parler, to talk, to speak, which is conjugated with avoir in compound tenses. This is yet another piece that needs to be memorized. The majority of verbs are conjugated with avoir, but there are about 21 verbs conjugated with être in compound tenses, 17 of which are usually focused on in textbooks and lessons. So here we have parler in the future anterior with the helper verb avoir in the future, joined with the past participle of parler, meaning talked or spoken. Will have spoken, will have talked. The past participle of parler is P-A-R-L-E accent aigu, which sounds the same as the infinitive. Parler. So we have j'aurais parlé, I will have talked. Tu auras parlé, you will have talked, informal singular. Il, elle, on aura parlé, he, she, one, or we will have talked. Nous aurons parlé, we will have talked. Vous aurez parlé, you will have talked, formal and or plural. And ils, elles auront parlé, they will have talked. Now let's look at a verb that's conjugated with the helper verb être. Here we have the verb devenir, which means to become. Devenir is one of the 17 to 21 verbs that uses être as its helper verb. So we have je serai devenu, I will have become. Tu seras devenu, you will have become, informal singular. Il, elle, on sera devenu, he, she, one, or we will have become. Nous serons devenus, we will have become. Vous serez devenu, you will have become, formal and or plural. And ils, elles seront devenus, they will have become. Note the letters in parentheses, E and S. This is because past participles conjugated with être agree with the subject. An E is added if the subject is feminine, and an S is added if the subject is plural. So for example, if we say I will become, je serai devenu, if the speaker is a woman or a girl, she would add an E to devenu, D-E-V-E-N-U-E. The E is silent but would be present in writing. If we say they will have become, ils seront devenus, we'll add an S to devenu as they is plural. If we're talking about a group of girls and are women, elles, we'll add an ES to make devenu feminine plural. Neither the E or the S changes the pronunciation of devenu. Phew, that was a doozy. Are you still with me? Isn't it amazing what you can get out of one French sentence? Speaking of which, let's go back to our sentence for 2 more notes. Both much simpler, I promise. So we have un tube, a hit. Un means a or one. We mentioned the in our previous lesson, so let's give a its own little moment. Just as we saw with the in our previous lesson, a agrees with its noun, so we have a masculine and feminine form. Un is the masculine form of a or one, which is of course singular. It's nasal in its purest form, un. Here we have some examples. A cat, un chat. A man is un homme. Notice that un loses its nasal quality when followed by a vowel or, as in this case, a mute H. So we get un homme, where we pronounce the N instead of un homme. Un homme. When used with feminine nouns, un becomes une, U-N-E. Notice how une is no longer nasal. Vowels plus N or M followed by the letter E tend not to be nasal. So we have une voiture, a car, and une femme, a woman. And finally, if we go back to our dialogue, we have the word tube, which is masculine. So a hit is un tube. Tube is slang for a hit song. We can also use the word un succès, literally a success. There's also the word un carton, another slang word for a hit. These last 2 words, un succès, un carton, can be used for any kind of hit, a movie, a song, etc. Un tube, on the other hand, refers specifically to a hit song. And there we have it. We've tackled another sentence from the first episode of Hélène et les Garçons. We'll continue tearing apart the dialogue in future lessons, so stay tuned. In the meantime, if you found this video helpful, please feel free to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Until then, à la prochaine! See you next time.